So we're gonna wait for some people more, or should we start?
I think we should go ahead and start because it's already past 9:50.
Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khatamin nabiyyin. Inshallah, today, 29 Jews, as you know. Look how quickly the time has passed. I mean, it's so difficult to believe we just started, so now we are at the end here. So today, inshallah, the 29 Jews. And we read the 28 juz yesterday. So they were, all the surahs in that juz were um, Madani surahs. And here, all the 11 surahs in this juz, they are all Makki surahs. And so quite a bit of contrast, because the subject from both the surahs, both the time period changes. In this juz and the next juz that we will inshallah cover tomorrow, if Allah wills, all these surahs are, majority of them, they are from the early period of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's prophethood. Early meaning, within the first, 4 years max, 5 years. Some of them are, from a later period, but generally they are from the early period. The one of the main characteristics of all these surahs in the 29 juz and the 30 juz, those that are from the early period of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's prophethood, they have a common subject of Tawheed. As we've been going through, the Quran, we see that all the Makki surahs, they have the subject of Tawheed. But here in these surahs, the Akhirah is very prominent. The other groups that we were going through the the earlier part of the Quran, Araf, An'am, and all these surahs, they were more focused on the reminders to mankind, signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all the previous nations that have passed, the messengership of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So those were the more prominent subjects there, along with Tawheed. Tawheed is in every Makki surah in one form or the other. But as I said, in these surahs, starting from the 29 juz, the 29th and the 30th juz, actually starting from the 27 juz, those Surah Zariyat, Surah Tur, Surah Najm, Surah Qamar, all of them, they emphasize, Surah Waqia. These are all about the Akhirah, the Day of Judgment. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he started preaching openly, after the 30 of Nubuwa, this was one of the main things that uh, uh, he focused on, because this is what was being revealed to him. These are the surah about Akhirah. And for the Arabs at that time, to a certain extent, they could accept Tawheed to a certain extent, because that they weren't unfamiliar with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the name Allah. They were not unfamiliar, because they were descendants of Ismail alayhi salam, so they knew Allah. They had the Kaaba there. People would come for pilgrimage, Hajj, and everything. So they knew Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, they had started committing shirk, and they had their own deities, idols that they worship. But of course, they said, all these idols, they are, they do intercession for us in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they knew Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the concept of Tawheed, the concept of introducing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to them was not that much of a baffling subject. But akhirah was that was something unheard of. I mean, the mind could not grasp the fact that after I am dead and buried, and my body is like dust, and then I will be resurrected again, and all my body will be joined back, and I will be resurrected again in the same form as I am in this world as a human being. This was very difficult to uh, grasp, and was very difficult to comprehend. So that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I said, Akhirah is the focus of these surahs. And as I said that, akhirah is a very important, it's one of the pillars of iman, obviously, but one of the core pillars of iman after tawheed. Once a person accepts that there is only one creator, then he has to know that, the life is not worthless. There is a purpose for this life. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah SWT said in Surah Zariyat that I have not created you purposeless. There is a purpose. I created you to worship me, and you will be held accountable for that purpose of creation. It's not that you will, like the mushrikeen in Makkah, they say, وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا إِلَّا الدَّهْرِ. Nothing kills us, it's just the time. We are born, we are raised, we live our life, we die, and that's it. That's it. I mean, that shows that there is no purpose of this life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, I have not created anything purposeless, for that matter. Anything in this universe, everything has a purpose. And the best of the creation, I mean, best of the best creation, human being, how can that be purposeless? There is a purpose for it as well. So it has the most important purpose. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and emphasizes that you have been created, you have been given a purpose in this life, and then you will be held accountable for that. You will come back to me and I will question you for everything that you have done. So, I mean, Tawheed and Akhirah are subjects that are, hand in hand. They are very much tied to each other. If somebody believes in Tawheed, he has to believe in the Akhirah. All the monotheistic religions of the world, whether they be Christianity, Judaism, or anything else, they emphasize the concept of the Day of Judgment, because there has to be it's another thing that those concepts have been diluted now. Like in Christianity, they say if you believe in Isa alayhi salam, then there is salvation. You will not be punished. But they do have the concept of the Day of Judgment, that it will come. There is going to be qiyamah. So every monotheistic religion, it presents the concept of accountability. So that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the early surahs to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was telling them that, there is only one creator. Allah is the only creator. He is the sustainer of the universe, and we are going to die, and He will resurrect us again, and He will hold us accountable. So most of these surahs that we will go through today, and I will, the reason I'm talking in the beginning is because I'm not going to go that much into detail in these surahs, because there's a lot of them surahs now. So, but I will briefly go over them. But as I said, most of them, they will present this concept of akhirah, and the accountability in the on the day of judgment. So, inshallah, so starting with Surah Al-Mulk. Again, this surah talks about, tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It talks about the magnificence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the glorification of Allah, how He created this universe, without any flaw. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenges, look up in the sky. Do you see anything? Do you see a hole in the sky? Do you see any flaw in the sky? And then Allah says, look again look. Do you see, your eyesight will return back to you, and perfectly, no flaw whatsoever. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I created this universe, with perfection. There is no imperfection in the creation of the universe, and the system is running perfectly for billions and billions of years. I mean, the night, the day comes after the night. The sun, the moon comes after the sun sets. So the sun sets at its time, the moon comes out. Everything is running perfectly. The seasons come, the year comes and goes all the time. Everything, and there's no change. So how can this be? How can this perfection in this universe exist without someone who is running this system? Just from a human perspective, if you think that there's a Ford plant of producing car. Can you imagine a plant that is producing car? There's nobody there and it's just producing by itself. No, there are machines. There are so many things involved. So when a car comes out, there are so many things involved in assembling that car together. There is a system that is running. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that look at my system, look at the system of this dunya, and then look at my system. My system is, perfect to the uh, degree that you cannot even imagine. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this and obviously mentions the akhirah in the surah as well. Then surah Noon that we after that, again in this surah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has a slightly different style than the other surahs in this juz. I mean, it does mention akhirah, but here the subject is Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, this is from the very early surah. Some of the mufassirin say that it was the second revelation that came. So there are different opinions on that, but some mufassirin say that this is the second revelation. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, along with akhirah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the greatness of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that ma anta bi ni'mati rabbika, you, oh my messenger, you're not a madman. Let them say what they are saying. And for you I have wa inna laka la ajran ghayra mamnun. Allah swears in the beginning, swears by that pen, and whatever the pen writes, the greatness of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So imagine the status of Nabi Sallallahu Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, again, because this is an early stage, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving strength to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's heart that, oh my messenger, whatever they're saying about you, it's not true. You are not mad, you're not a sorcerer, these are not things, you're not hearing anything. These are the revelations that are coming from the creator of the universe. And وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Your character, character is exalted, is exemplary. I mean, from the very beginning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praising Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's character because obviously, he's lived in that city for 40 years. He's not new. So this surah focuses on the character of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then obviously after that, the subject of inzar and warning for the people of Makkah. It starts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the parable of people who have a garden and they have everything in the garden and they're blessed by Allah, but yet they are ungrateful to the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how the punishment of Allah comes, and then they start begging that, oh Allah, give us our garden back and we'll be grateful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that don't be like to the people of Quraysh, don't be like that. So so this is a little different style. Then Surah Haqqa, the one we read after this one, again Surah Haqqa is all about the day of judgment, the occurrence of the day of judgment. It explains in a very a very clear manner that فَيَوْمَ إِذٍ وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةُ, when the event will occur, the day when the event will occur. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains one after the other the events that will take place, that the sky will split up, and all the angels will come forth, and they will be carrying the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, and then how the accountability will take place. People will be in two groups. One, those who receive their account in their right hand, and how happy they will be, what kind of rewards that they will enjoy. And then the other group, those who receive their account in the left hand, and how what kind of a situation that they will be crying. They will be saying that we wish that we did not get this account of ours. We wish that we would not be resurrected. They will cry for that their wealth is of no use to them today, their power is of no use. So, and because in the beginning of the surah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about all the previous nations, Ad and Samud and Firaun, one after the other, they all came and they boasted about their arrogance. Where are they today? Nobody is here. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they will come all on the day of judgment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the akhirah, the occurrence of the akhirah, the events of the akhirah, and how the people, will be treated on that day based upon their deeds. And then again at the end of the surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his greatness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Innahu laqawlu rasulin kareem." This is the word of my messenger. Here, Rasul is meant as Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Wama huwa biqawli sha'irin." It's not the saying of any poet or anything. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, praises Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his status. and confirms that whatever he is saying, it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If may Allah forbid, and na'uzubillah, if he had said something other than that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that how I would have dealt with him. But that is not true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just telling the humanity that he is a messenger and he does not speak. In other places of the Quran it comes that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam does not say anything except وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He does not say, in Surah Najm we read, he does not say out of his desire. Whatever he says is, that wahi is not just that the Quran that we read. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sent revelation to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he did not, that is not part of the Quran. Allah, whatever Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about that. Then Surah Al-Ma'arij again, talking about the day of judgment. Again, such a day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains in the beginning that it will be such a day that yawaddul mujrimu law yaftadi min adhabi yawma idhin bibanihi. A day that the mujrim, the criminals, they would want to be freed from the horrors of that day, and they will be willing to give up their own children, ransom their children or their wives or their brothers or their relatives. I mean, they will say, we will give everything to to not be thrown into the hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks again about the horrors of the day of judgment and mentions, in all these surahs, the names of the hellfire. If you remember, we went through the names, the seven levels of the hellfire. In this and in the 30th juz, those names remain. Like for example, in Surah Al-Ma'arij, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Kalla innaha ladha. So one of the names of the hellfire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, nay, but it is ladha, nazza'at lishawa. It will, pluck the head out of, the skin out of the head. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the names of different levels of the hellfire that we had read here. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the hellfire in Surah Al-Ma'arij. Then after Surah Al-Ma'arij is Surah Nuh. Surah Nuh is, again, it's also a slightly different style of surah, even though it has akhirah and everything mentioned in it. But here the topic is, it's like a biography of Nuh alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking 950 years of Nuh alayhi salam, compressed it into 28 ayat of Surah Nuh, about page and a half. So I mean, I don't believe there's any writer in this world who can do something like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the ability. Look at the power of the word of Allah. So 950 years compressed in 28 ayahs from the beginning, how Nuh came, gave his da'wah to his people, how they rejected, how he advised to them, what their response was. So the entire biography of Nuh alayhi salam. And then in that biography, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also brings the concept of Tawheed and the concept of Akhirah. Nuh alayhi salam's warning to his people that if you do not heed to what I am saying, that you will be held accountable on the day of judgment. So again, those things are brought, but in the context of Nuh alayhi salam's biography. Then the next surah is Surah Al-Jinn. This also is, slightly different surah in this surah, just in this juz, like Surah Noon, Surah Nuh, Surah Jinn. These are slightly different surahs. They have a different style. So Surah Jinn, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, talking about obviously the jinn, but this company of the jinn, the Mufassirin say, is different than the company of the jinn that accepted Islam that are mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf. So it's a different company. In the narration it comes that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he visited a fair in Okaz with some of his companions to invite the people over there for Islam. And he on the way they stayed at a place called Nakhla, and at that time a company of the jinns, they heard Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam reciting the Quran, and they came and they listened to the Quran, and they accepted Islam. So I mean, and if you read the surah, it's very clear, because those jinn that are mentioned here, they are saying that they did not know about the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. they were not aware. So that means they were not Muslims, but believers. But the ones that are mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf, they talk about, Musa alayhi salam to their people when they go back. They talk about, that we have seen a book that has come after Musa, and it talks about our creator. So obviously they knew Musa alayhi salam and they believed in Musa alayhi salam. So two different, different events that take place. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again here says the same thing, that once this creation hears the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they accept the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, the same message to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that don't be disheartened. If these people of your city are not listening to you, then there are other creations, other people, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-An'am, that فَإِن يَكْفُرُوا بِهَا هَؤُلَاءِ فَقَدْ وَكَّلْنَا بِهَا قَوْمٌ لَيْسُوا بِهَا بِكَافِرِينَ. O my messenger, if these people of yours they deny you, then I prepared another nation, and that nation, they will be very, very solid Muslims. They will not deny. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Ansar, of Medina before Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's migration. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, don't be disheartened. If they're not believing, I have other nations, I have other creations who will come and he will believe in you. Then Surah Al-Muzammil, again also it's a very early surah. In this surah, there are basically some of the ayat, the last ayat, the 20th ayat of this surah, the Mufassirin says that is an ayat that was revealed in Medina, because of the subjects that come in that ayat, which is the qital fi sabilillah and other things which were not known in Makkah. There was no concept of that. But in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is training Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the first beginning part, because this is from the early surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he should stand in the night. Salatul Tahajjud is being emphasized for Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he should stand up in the night, half of it or a little bit more of it, and recite the Quran. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is encouraged to spend the night in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a portion of the night in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to recite the Quran. So there must have been enough Quran revealed that he could stand up and recite the Quran. So this is the a part of the training of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then obviously, as I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, you know, um, the day of judgment here as well, and brings the horrors of the day of judgment as in the other surahs as well. Then Surah Al-Mudassir after this, that is also one of the earlier surahs. The first 7 verses of that surah are, some of the Mufassirin say that that is the second revelation, and it makes more sense. I mean, because there is a hadith to verify this. In one of the hadiths, Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu, he narrates in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that he one day when he was when the wahi had come, the first wahi came, and then there was a gap. There was no wahi after that. So that's called the fatratul wahi, the break in the revelation. And that time was very difficult for Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that when one day I was passing on the way, and suddenly I heard somebody was calling on my name, and I looked here and there, and I couldn't see anyone. And the name, somebody kept calling Muhammad, Muhammad, and I looked up at the sky, and then I saw the same angel, means Jibril alayhi salam, that I had seen in the cave. Obviously, in the cave, Jibril he saw Jibril salam in this narration. He saw Jibril salam in his true form. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, I saw the same angel who visited me in the cave, and he was sitting on a throne between the heaven and the earth. So he saw him, and he said that he was covering the entire, I mean, the entire sky. I couldn't see anything but him when I looked up. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam got scared. Obviously, it must have been a very scary sight. So he ran from there, and he says that I came to my house, and I told Khadija radiallahu anha to cover me. So she covered me in a blanket, and then this revelation came that Ya ayyuhal mudaththir, oh the one who is covered. So the first 7 ayat of this revelation are considered to be the of this surah are considered as the second revelation. And basically, what they talk about is They talk about the person who is going to give the dawah, what should be his what are the qualities that he should possess. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, very beginning, teaching Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, qum fa anzir, stand up and warn the people. And then warabbaka fakabbir, you when you warn the people, you start with the glorification of your Lord, as we say alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. And then make sure that your garments are clean, and make sure that there is no impurity around you, and make on you or around you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, don't expect anything in return. When you are delivering the message of your Lord, don't expect that you will be compensated for that. And as I said, this is one of the core things of the da'i, that he will not expect from the people that they, and as I said, to me in Surah Yasin, as I said, as the person said about those three messengers, "Ittabi'u man la yas'alukum ajran wa hum muhtadun." Follow the ones, those who do not ask you for any, recompensation, and they are the truly guided ones. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam from the very beginning that, this, you will not get anything and you will not ask for anything. So you make sure that you are doing it purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And and be patient. Be patient in this path. So whatever comes, be patient. So these are, instructions to anybody who wants to be in the work of dawah. So these are the main things that he needs to follow. So this is basically again Surah Al-Mudathir. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talks about the day of judgment in the surah, and explaining the day of judgment, how it, and one of the, again, the names of the hellfire. Wama adraka ma saqar. What do you know about the saqar? So again, one of the names of the hellfire, la tubqi wa la tadhar. It will not leave anything, in its condition, in its original form. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains the, what kind of a place is a sucker, and what kind of punishments, those who will go in there, they will face. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in later part of the surah talks about, those who are going into the sucker, what will be, what did they do? So they will be questioned from the people of the Jannah, and they will ask him, Ma salakakum fi sucker? What has brought you to the sucker? What did you do? So they will start saying, Qalu lam naku min al musallin. First of all, we did not pray. Walam naku nut'imul miskin. Number two, we did not feed those who were hungry. When we saw somebody is hungry, he is needy, I did not spend my wealth. Wa kunna nakhudu ma'al kha'idin. And we used to spend our time, gossiping and whispering and this and that, just wasting our time. Wa kunna nukazzibu biyawmiddin. And then we used to not believe that the day of judgment is coming. So again, akhirah again. So these are the qualities of those who will end up in the sucker. Then Surah Al-Qiyamah, again, the topic here is the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the same, how the day of judgment will occur. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives example that, the one, the creator who has created you, he has the ability to recreate you. Even, the tips of your finger, he can recreate exactly the way they are, meaning the fingerprints. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I will treat you exactly, recreate you exactly the same way. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talks about the one, that the creator who has the ability to do this, certainly can, cause the resurrection to happen. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the day of judgment. And in between, the subject breaks, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts telling Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, La tuharrik bihi lisanaka. Don't move your tongue, O my messenger, that quickly. Because in the tafsir, it comes that when Jibreel alayhi salam, and it comes 2-3 times in different parts of the Quran, that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been told to, relax. Like for example, in I believe it was in Surah Taha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, that do not hasten to recite the Quran. من قبل أن يقضى عليك وحي. Well, so here again, same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, don't move your tongue too fast, because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being a human being, when he was hearing Jibreel alayhi salam reciting these ayat, so he was repeating quickly after him, just to make sure that he does not forget them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reassuring Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that inna alayna jam'ahu wa Qur'ana. It is my responsibility to make sure that I collect this kalam in your heart and make you recite. Quran means something that is often repeated or recited. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and it is my job to make you recite it. وَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنَ. And when you recite this, then follow the recitation that I have taught you. So this is proof. This ayah is the proof that the form of the Quran that we recite today is exactly the form that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam recited. When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, even though it was not in a book form, but when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam composed the Quran, told the Sahaba to arrange the surahs in the sequences that we see here, and when they would stand up and recite in the seven manazil, they would recite it exactly in this same order, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam here that when you recite it in the order that I have taught you. So this is the order that we are, it's the same order that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam recited. So this subject abruptly comes in between because of what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was doing when this wahi was being revealed to him. Then after this Surah Dahar, Surah Insan, again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talks about the day of judgment, and again focusing on the weakness of mankind. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you look at yourself, what I created you from a drop of, sperm. هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا. A time has passed on man when he was nobody in this universe. No mention of him. I mean, we can relate to this as collectively as a humanity when Adam alayhi salam was not created, and we can relate it to ourselves individually as well. When I was not created, when I wasn't born, I mean, was there any mention of me in this universe, on this earth? No, it wasn't. And now today that I am, a person is born and he grows up and he has something, he becomes a president or whatever. He starts thinking of himself that he has something, he has some power, he has this, and he starts becoming arrogant. He forgets the time when he did not exist in this universe and he was nothing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that remember your beginning. You were, created from, this from a nutfa, which is, a drop of, a drop of semen. It is worthless, has no value. So I created you from that, and there was no mention of you. And now, you think that you are something. And then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again starts with the day of judgment, how it will occur, and those who are, the believers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Jannah here a lot, and the luxuries of the Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains in detail over here. So the day of judgment comes here, and then Surah Mursalat again. The difference again, the day of judgment mentioned in the Surah Mursalat as well, but the contrast between Surah Mursalat and the one Surah before that, Surah Dahar, is in Surah Dahar, as I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks in detail about the Jannah and the luxuries of Jannah. Whereas in Surah Mursalat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the hellfire and the hardships of those who will be in the hellfire and what they will face. So as I said, all these surahs, they're talking about basically, the akhirah, the day of judgment, and how it will occur, and the events related to it, and how, which group will end up where, and why they will end up there, for what reason. So these are the main topics of these surahs, inshallah. If we have a few minutes, if anybody has any questions, inshallah, we can go. Other than that, alhamdulillah. Okay. Inshallah, if there are no questions, inshallah, then we will finish it here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير.